Now that we know how to write dialogue, it's important that we add description and action to go along with the dialogue. Our characters don't talk like robots. How are you today? I am fine. No, they do things as they talk. They move their arms, they wave their hands, they scratch their cheek. They do things to show who they are, and it also reveals their personalities. So get your characters moving as they talk. Here's how. I'm sure you remember the story On the Bridge by Todd Strasser. Let's reimagine this conversation between Seth and the tough guy Adam without any description. It would probably look a little bit like this. I beat the crap out of this guy at the mall yesterday, said Adam. How come? Asked Seth. He just bugged me, that's all. He was bigger, probably a senior. I don't let anybody push me around. What did you do to him? I'm pretty sure I broke his nose, said Adam. Now clearly this is a great conversation, a great back and forth between Seth and Adam, but it's really hard to visualize. What are they doing? What's happening as they're talking? What kind of facial expressions are they making? What movements are going on here? Let's take a look at how he really wrote it and see how it came out. Here's the actual copy of On the Bridge by Todd Strasser. Let's read along a little bit at the beginning of the conversation. I beat the crap out of this guy at the mall, Adam Lockwood said. He was leaning on the stone wall of the bridge, smoking a cigarette and watching the cars speed by on the highway beneath him. His black hair fell down into his eyes. I mean, right there, we're learning so much about him. Just from this part, we know where they are, leaning on the stone bridge of the wall. We know what they're doing, smoking cigarettes. And we even know that Adam has black hair that fell down into his eyes. He's using the conversation as a way of giving us more information. And we know Seth is right next to him. How come? Seth Dawson asked, leaning on the stone wall next to him. We know that Adam shrugs. He turns up the collar of his leather jacket, and it's up along his neck. See, even there are short paragraphs without any conversation that give us information and help us to visualize this better. Let's jump down to this line, this right down here. What did you do to him? So here again, Seth is smoking a cigarette, and author is letting us know that this is the first time that Seth has ever smoked, and he wasn't really inhaling, just holding smoke in his mouth for a while and then blowing it out. So the author is giving us information about the characters, helping us to visualize them, all the while having this running conversation going between them. Do you get an image of your head of Adam? I did a little looking around in the internet and found something that might be a little bit close, though not perfect, but I knew what to look for because of the description. Yeah, I can see Adam looking a little bit like that. Trying to look tough, though we can tell he probably really isn't. Another writing technique I notice authors using is writing a verb that ends with ing, so you can add description to it. Take a look at this part of On the Bridge. The big guys in the car have pulled up behind Adam and Seth, and they've taken Seth and thrown him up against the hood of the car, pressed his face to the windshield, and now one of the guys says, "Lick it till it's clean." But he doesn't stop there. We have the guy said, and then we have that ing verb. What is he doing while he said it? He's pressing Seth's face down. There it is. There's the ing verb that tells what's happening while he's speaking. Let's take a look at a scene from Shells by Cynthia Rylant. Here we pick it up towards the end where Esther and Michael are having this conversation about the hermit crab, and she actually ends up wanting to go purchase more. Let's read it just reading the quotes without any of the description. I think he needs a companion. What? I think Sluggo needs a girlfriend. Where is that pet store? Oh my! Look at them! Oh, look at those shells. You say they grow out of them? We must stock up on several sizes. See the pink in that one? Michael, look, he's got his little head out. So there's conversation, there's going back and forth, but there's no description. You can't visualize this in your head until we actually look at all the description that the author adds. We can see them moving, we can see their facial expressions as we read. Take a look at the highlighted parts as we read this next part. Take a look back at the beginning. We see that during their conversation, she looked over at him with a frown on her face. And that when Michael talks, his eyebrows go up and his jaw drops down. And in response, Esther sniffs. You know, I can really see this conversation happen. I can see what these characters are doing as they're talking. They're not robots. They're not two talking heads. They actually have actions and motions that tell part of the story. I think Slogo needs a girlfriend. She stood up. That's its own short little sentence right in the middle there. Where is that pet store? And then Esther grabbed the rim of the tank and craned her neck over the side. That's awesome. I can totally picture that. It's a beautiful description. I can imagine this lady with her head going over the edge of the tank just being amazed at all the hermit crabs in there. This tells a big part of the story. I can see Aunt Esther coming out of her shell, so to speak. Finally, let's take a look at Good Enough by Rachel Vale. In this part of the story, Dory's mom is just home for a few minutes from work, and they have this little conversation. And like before, we'll just read it with the quotes to see how it sounds. So, have you thought of what you want for your birthday yet? Come on, I gotta get back to work. What are you really hoping for? An Orion shirt. What's an Orion shirt? Tell me. What's an Orion shirt? I've never heard of that. Don't chew on your lips, Dory. They get so chapped. It's nothing. Just a kind of shirt. You know, at this point, it's a nice conversation. We can tell what's going on, but the author does so much more to add description to the conversation. Let's take a look at some of the description that's added. We can see in this first part that Dory rested her forehead in the space between her thumb and her index finger, that she leaned in closer to her math problem trying to figure it out, that when Mom was trying to talk with her, she was urging her, drinking her iced tea. And here, after mumbling and trying to focus on her math problem, we get even a part of the setting here. We know it's the first week of school, and so that's important to us to know when this story takes place. Mom's enthusiastic, and she shakes her head. She didn't mean to say anything, and she even goes through the motions of erasing the columns of numbers. Mom nudges her with her iced tea glass. So, the author is doing more than just having people talk. She is moving the plot along and also trying to give us clues to help us visualize what's happening. So here are some basic guidelines for dialogue that you can put in your notes. First of all, use dialogue so we can hear your characters and get a feel for their personalities. Second, make sure there is description in the dialogue to help the reader visualize. When you're adding description to the dialogue, one thing you can do is add description to the tag by using an ing verb. For example, your tag might end up saying, he said, wiping the sweat from his forehead. And there is our ing verb. Another way you can do this is to simply add an independent sentence that describes what is happening. Again, here's that example of Aunt Esther. Oh my! And the independent sentence, Esther grabbed the rim of the tank and craned her neck over the side. Now it's time for you to apply what you've learned in this video. I want you to try rewriting this conversation in your notebook by adding more description to it. Of course, as you write, you will also need to add the punctuation because the quotes and things are missing from here. Conversation sounds like this. Come on, man. Hand over the money. Nope, it's mine. You would if you know what's good for you. Can't we talk about this? The time for talking's over. Pause this screen and go ahead and write it out. The last thing I want to point out is that a story is more than just dialogue. As a teacher, I'm always stressing to make sure you add dialogue, make sure we can hear your characters talking. But sometimes students write a whole story and it's only talking. Take a look at this little part of Good Enough. I went ahead and highlighted all the conversation in this section of the story. And you'll notice as we move our way up that most of the story is narration. It's the author telling what's happening. And as a writer, that's your job. You need quotes, you need to bring it to life, we need to hear your characters talking, but you have to tell the story. You have to explain and describe. So there you have it. I hope you found this helpful, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you not only write great dialogue, but also add descriptions so that we can see your characters and their actions while they're talking.